All right, so welcome back, everybody. Today I want to talk about depression as it relates to chronic illness and specifically long COVID. I'm not going to cover everything that causes depression. That's not what this video is about. I'm dealing with depression as it relates to these topics and particularly my experience with depression. Now, I'm not someone who's normally depressed. I'm not someone who's normally spending a lot of time being sad and feeling down and feeling sorry for myself, but depression is a normal part of chronic illness. It's something you're going to have to deal with, no matter how mentally strong you may be, no matter how good your relationships may be. That's something you're going to have to deal with. Now, as a Christian, I may find people in my circle who say Christians shouldn't be depressed. They shouldn't feel like that. They should just trust Jesus more and love Jesus more, and their depression will go away. There's some truth to that, but there's some stigma there that completely disregards the idea that Christians can get depressed and it's something they have to deal with and it's a reality of their life. And if you're dealing with a chronic illness, I don't care how good of a Christian you are, you're going to go through experiences of depression. You can't just say, that's not real, it's not happening, or even that it's a sin. You have to be careful about that. Depression can be a sin, but that depends for how long you're in it and how deeply you're going into it and the causes for that, right? But depression is real for anybody. And in my case, depression comes on because I start dwelling on my disease, particularly what I'm going through, what I'm experiencing, the symptoms I'm having, and how sometimes they're not getting better. Depression can be caused in my situation because I have unfulfilled expectations, because I had an expectation that because I had a good health day, the next day will be a good health day as well, but then it's not. And I may think I'm getting better, but then my health plateaus or it goes down for a little bit. And my doctor told me that's pretty common with people who have long COVID, that it's not always this straight upward incline of recovery. And so he warned that's when depression can set in, and I found that's very real for me. When I start thinking about, I'm getting better, and then it doesn't happen, I can be really depressed for a little while. Depression also happens in my case when I start thinking about all the things I can't do, all the things I used to do, all the things I'm unable to do, that I don't have the ability to do, that I want to do. Maybe some work, maybe some activity with my children or my wife or with my church, and I can't do it even though I have a strong desire to do it. Maybe I had plans for the day and I wanted to get so much work done, or I wanted to go on an activity, and then my health just plummeted and I couldn't do that. All these things can cause depression. And what I found is when you dwell on those thoughts, when you remain in those negative thoughts about your situation or your illness, depression sets in. Now, when I recognize there's depression there, sometimes I stay in it for a little bit and I wallow in it, and that's unhealthy. And that's going to lead to more serious thoughts, a protracted state of depression. It doesn't have to be that way. So, what I do is when I start to feel depressed, I try to turn off those thoughts, right? It's not always that simple, but recognizing what's causing those thoughts and saying no to them will help. That's the first step. But then you got to put up guards so they don't come back, because you can be depressed during the day and start to feel better and then go back into depression. And that second time can be much worse. And it can all happen in the same day, right? So first I deal with the thoughts. I say no to the thoughts, right? And then what I will usually do is spend some time in prayer, spend some time reading my Bible. And many times I will open the scriptures and just in a few minutes come across something that's very helpful, either an instruction I need to follow, or a reminder about how good my God is, or a reminder that my situation is not permanent, or a reminder that even in my situation, as bad as it may be, there are good things. There's a purpose to it, right? And so that gives me a better perspective. That gives me a godly perspective, and that helps. There are other things I do that help with depression as well. Getting up, getting away from a screen, getting away from just laying on the couch or the bed and going and doing something. It may not be a high activity, um, a high energy activity, but it could be something as simple as walking outside, taking in some fresh air, walking down the street a little bit, walking around the house. Okay, that's a change of perspective as well. And the fresh air helps, and the movement helps, the activity helps. Another thing that helps is taking your mind off it by having a diversion, watching something funny, telling a joke, reading something funny. I read a lot of books. Since I've had long COVID, my reading has gone way, way up. And that helps. That gets my mind out of the gutter and on something else, right? What also helps is that um, I do something for other people. Depending on my level of activity, it may be something as simple as calling someone on the phone and trying to be an encouragement to them, finding out how they're doing. It may be something like finding a Bible verse or a quote that is encouraging to me, and I pass it on to someone else. It could be going and getting involved in homeless ministry. I work in homeless ministry with my church, and I'm involved in that every single week. And so just going and being in that activity, working with people on the streets and talking to them, listening to their problems, bringing them something to eat or a shirt or something, really helps me. You know, they get a lot of help from it, but it helps me too. It gets my perspective off of me. So doing something for other people, and it doesn't have to be outside your house. It doesn't have to be doing something for strangers. You can do something as simple as doing a house chore that will be a blessing to someone else. Cleaning something, washing something, sweeping something, making a simple food for someone. I like to make food for my wife and my children, and I know that's a help for them. It gives them something they can enjoy, and it gets my mind off me and my situation and my problems because I'm thinking about how much they will enjoy it. All right. So these kinds of things really help with depression. Another thing that helps when you feel depressed is to force yourself to change your mood. Stop thinking the same thoughts and make yourself have a different attitude. So you can do this by singing a song, by um, trying to have a good attitude, right? A lot of emotions can be gotten under control where it doesn't suppress the emotion, but you just force yourself to change the emotion. And by force of will and by the exercise of a good emotion, you can change the bad emotion that you are feeling. This doesn't work all the time for everybody and in every circumstance, I understand, but something as simple as just singing a happy song, listening to some happy music, watching something funny will force a change in your emotions and help get you out of that depressive state, right? So these are a few things I use when I feel down and I feel depressed, and I hope they help you. There's a lot more I could talk about on this subject, but I just want to keep it kind of short and snappy and practical. So maybe you can use some of these things the next time you feel depressed.